offered Joellen Dival as our out-of-district coordinator. 50% time, and that's totally grant funded.
Great, thank you. We will take those up separately. Okay, any questions on 9H, personnel hires? Okay, we'll move on to 9J. We skip I. There is no I. It's too easily confused with L.
Why do we have L?
Because
that's my
it
initial.
follows K, and I just didn't think to eliminate it. Item J, collective bargaining. I
I
see.
thought we were gonna miss him.
Yes, we are.
We're at item 9K, and that's a collective bargaining topic.
It's J, we're at
J.
I'm sorry, 9J. What did I say?
You said K.
All right, sorry.
Didn't want to go with that.
You really threw me, Dan. I received a formal request from the Newfound Area Teachers Association that states that I'm writing to request the opening of negotiations for the agreement between the Newfound Area School Board and the Newfound Area Teacher Association for the years beyond 2014. The NADA team currently consists of myself, this is from Deidre Conway, President of the Newfound Area Teachers Association, Mr. Dave Harlow, Mrs. Shelley Philbrick, and Mr. Chet Devani, and Mrs. Shelley Doucette. Please respond with a few dates your team will be available to set ground rules and future meeting dates. Thank you for bringing this request to the board. So we have a formal request to undertake negotiations for the subsequent contract year beyond this. And I just wanted to bring this matter before the board for discussion this evening to see what is the board's pleasure in terms of what we would like to do vis-a-vis what we chose to do last year. Recall that last year, the entire board sat as the negotiations team. And as a result of that, each of the board members were informed firsthand as to what the issues and concerns were between the Teachers Association and the board. And there was no miscommunication of any sort. It was a direct understanding. The downside of that approach is that once we ratify an agreement that technically is brought before the board by default has to vote in favor of that ratification and by law. So you can't have a agreed upon ratification if you sit on the committee and then vote 6-1 or 5-2 against it. So that's the downside of doing it that way. It just doesn't tie your hands so much because it implies if you came to agreement, you wouldn't vote against it. So I throw that open to the floor for purposes of getting back to NADA to explain to them whether or not we will start the negotiations with the full board, with a subcommittee as a negotiations team, and/or with an attorney. Sue?
Well, I thought it worked well last year with the whole board. I think it was.
I did
Because
too.
you can't get across to the board what goes on at a 2-3 hour meeting. You just can't get all that across.
Yeah.
And I thought Fridays worked well. What's the data?
Yeah.
Dawn?
What was the cost of the lawyer?
We budgeted $25,000 last year, but I don't think we came anywhere near that. Do you remember, Dan?
I think the budget was 20.
20?
I think you spent approximately 17. That's from memory.
Yeah.
I can certainly get you the exact data, but I believe on a budget of 2017 was spent
On just negotiations.
on negotiations.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
Yes, I don't think we need the attorney.
I don't think you need the lawyer
to
until
be
the
honest.
nitty-gritty.
Not at the table, we need
No,
him to consult.
the first
with.
couple of meetings, I think last year we did, but
No, we didn't.
what we had them right there.
We
I
could've
think-
said no
I think
just
last
as
year
easy as
it
he
might
did.
I know, but he could have had a lot
Let's
of other
hold one
problems.
meeting.
Yeah.
Ruby?
Last year it might not have been a bad thing because it was our first year working with a 2% tax
right.
cap. But we've done it now. And now I think just
We'll go
having
right through
him
that,
as a
right?
consultant would be enough.
What was,
Don?
Dan, what was the, I guess, savings from the prior contract to this year's contract?
Well, the warrant article that was the result of the negotiations had a cost to it of $56,000. However, there were structural changes that will result in savings moving forward that haven't been defined yet.
But if there was no agreement, wasn't that going to be more expensive?
There are many people who believe that a no agreement would have long-term expense ramifications in excess of what an agreement reached had.
Okay.
Any further comment?
Just hypothetically, what would happen if we said we're not interested in negotiating?
I don't think you can
Well,
legally.
yeah.
Legally, you have an
You have
obligation.
an obligation, you have
You
to.
got what you got, and that's it.
We can close the door after the
Yeah.
first meeting.
Not a good idea.
PELRB will have a ruling against you
That's
quickly.
fine.
Yeah, hypothetically, I don't think we want to do that.
I just, for the record, after the last couple comments, I'd like to say that as a board, I think we support our teachers, and these comments probably don't reflect our true feelings towards negotiating with the staff.
Oh, the last one.
Well, I think obviously, we were all in support of the agreement last year, which is the benefit of having the full board negotiate. So we're in full support of it, supported it publicly. I think we're pleased to come to agreement, so. It seems consensus-wise that I think,
Well, last year,
yeah,
overall.
I believe what I'm hearing is you'd like to do the same thing this year,
Yeah,
and only this time without an attorney.
Yeah.
not until we decide
start.
we need one, I'll get to
Okay.
that stage.
And we'll just split up the 17 grand.
The full board
Sure, we can find a place. No attorney.
will serve as negotiations team.
One comment?
Go
Would
ahead,
it
Don.
be worth discussing with him the pros and cons of bringing him in late versus from the beginning?
Yeah, what I think is probably best at this point is, given the general feeling, is probably to discuss that with Stacy in terms of what we should do. And then maybe she and I can have that conversation with the attorney.
And I think if NATA brings in a representation, then we have
Yeah.
to have it also.
Well,
So
and
we
that
know
was-
that, yeah.
That was the other nature of the request, I think, is to determine whether or not we're going to have an attorney present or not, so,
For the ground rules, you
Yeah.
mean?
so, well, at all.
Yeah, I
Because
think
they
for the
wanted to
process, they
start
wanted to
with a
know.
representative if we chose to do that, so.
Right.
I think at this point, it's our intent not to,
Not,
and unless advised otherwise, we'll take the action to determine whether we should come back to the board and recommend differently. Now, with that said, she's asking for dates to set ground rules and future meeting dates. We heard from Ruby that Fridays worked well last year. It was a late afternoon session starting at 4, I believe.
4 or 4:30, I don't remember.
I think
Yeah.
it was at 4, for the most part.
And it was,
Does
I thought
anyone-
the middle school worked well too.
And they were quick, really. They were, what, hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah. So, given that that was a successful endeavor last year, perhaps we should replicate that. Looking at a calendar here,
Didn't we just schedule like 2, and then we saw how it went, and we added?
The ones after that.
Yeah.
That's the way we did it last
Yeah.
year?
Work
Yeah,
together
we
with
only set the first few. We did only set the first 2 or 3.
Right.
Yeah, at the first meeting, I think we agreed on
Get-
subsequent
yeah,
dates.
Get together.
Yeah, that's the way it reads.
Yeah.
That's the way.
We can maybe come up with 1 or probably 2 dates to give them as options.
You're flexible.
So we're at September 9th. We have a planning and dialogue meeting on the 23rd, right, Stacy?
Correct.
How does the 27th look for everyone?
27th,
Friday's harder for me than
September?
Thursdays. I've gotta see what I can do.
Yeah, September 27th is a Friday, 4 o'clock.
Not sure.
For starters.
That's homecoming weekend
Okay,
from the high school calendar. I don't know if that affects us or not.
shouldn't. Can
Probably a
we-
dance afterwards that you could chaperone.
Yeah, can we assume,
I'm good.
just to make progress, can we assume that October 4th, which is the following Friday, would be an alternate start and/or a subsequent meeting date? Okay, hearing no objection, we'll go with the 27th and/or October 4th. 4 PM start. Stacy, can you secure the facilities at the middle school?
Yep. What room did you use, like the conference room or?
I think we used the
Science.
science lab.
Science.
Okay.
And we had other rooms available for.
Caucusing.
Yeah.
Okay, some small rooms,
With
okay.
2 other rooms to
I'll talk to them.
caucus, but
Yep.
we seem to just use the science lab.
Did you want me to email Deidre this information? Did you want me to correspond with her, or did you want to do that?
If you don't mind, just let her know this is what we've decided. So it'll be the full board as the negotiation team without counsel, at least to start.
Sure. Yep.
And with the footnote that we're gonna have that conversation with Matt and,
Okay.
subject to possible change, but we'll notify the board accordingly. Any parting comment, Dan, on the topic? Advice?
He'll be gone. His party's on the 25th.
Yeah, I know.
He zipped his lips.
He's
rolled
n-
down.
You'll still be here till the end of the month, though,
Vinnie.
right?
Question
Still
for
be here till the end
Dan.
of the month, won't you?
Go ahead.
I'm at a conference on the 26th and 27th.
Don't
And
get
30th is
turned
vacation
around
day.
when you leave.
30th is vacation day, so.
Dan, did you provide the different health insurance options, or didn't Matt?
I,
Dan.
So the new business administrator should be able to help us with that.
should be.
Yeah.
If you'd like, I can get current rates on those other options that were discussed last year. Stacy has
Yeah,
asked
I
me to
can,
build the kind of matrix that was a tool in previous years. That was provided to both the association and the board in terms of the various costs, how they would affect various, whether you talk about cost of living changes to the matrix, step increases or not, changes in the various cost factors of the agreement. That spreadsheet tool that was used last year, Stacy asked me
Yep.
if I would update it with the current matrix of staff that it relates to, and that will not be a problem at all, having that ready in time.
Yeah. And LGC is always willing to come in and do a workshop for the board or for the teachers on the different plans and what they look like and what options are out there for you.
Yeah, I see in the paper there, one of the other schools come up with the same percentage we got, like ours, 87%.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, I looked at, I sure I was gonna bring it in, but I didn't. But I just, it's almost like ours, I didn't know if they contacted you or what, Dan, you know?
Nope.
Well, they make a copy for some teachers.
Okay, any further discussion on collective bargaining?
this could be at home, but did we all get a copy last year? I just want to look at the existing.
The existing contract?
Contract.
Okay, Joe, we can get you all one.
Yeah, so I may have it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was provided digitally, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll get you a copy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I still have it.
Could I have one as well, please?
Yep. Would you prefer a hard copy or a electronic? Hard copy?
I can write it up.
Said look at this code.
Yeah. Or Pony Express it too.
I'm the only one who can get by without a computer.
Okay.
Still print it.
Can we move on to item 9K, which is superintendent goals?
Yep, so I was.
Stacy.
I'm gonna pass these along. I developed 6 goals to work on over the year, kind of taking the information that I've received from the board, kind of your goals, taking those and looking at them to identify some areas that I've already been working on, but also that will have future impacts. So I'll just review them briefly so you can see I've also met with Vincent and reviewed them with him, so trying to get other input. So the first is really to investigate, assess, analyze, and make a recommendation regarding any reconfiguration, including K-8, K-6, school expansion, modifications, or closing. The second is to review all professional and support positions in the district and make a recommendation for the budget process.
Hold on.
Yep.
I think for the benefit of those people at home, I think we should read these literally as
Okay.
proposed to us.
So to investigate, assess, analyze, and make a recommendation regarding any reconfiguration of the school district. This will include reviewing K-8 possibilities, K-6 possibilities, and school expansion, modification of use, or closing possibilities. A presentation will be made to the board at a meeting in late November, and I have November 25th as kind of slated as that meeting. The assessment will be completion of the task and presentation presently targeted for November 25th.
Thank you.
2 is review all professional and support positions in the district and make a recommendation for the budget process for any realignments, reductions, or increases, and ensure that all positions in the budget have a solid job description with specific expectations by the end of the 2013-14 school year. The assessment will be is completion of the budget process, demonstrating a clear focus on the needs of the district to include financial capacity, building capacity, ensuring that strong instructional practices are occurring, and reviewing the needs for support staff with the student services administrator and building level principals. The second kind of part of that assessment is a complete review of all job descriptions. New job descriptions with specificity will be added for any positions that will continue and that do not currently have one in place. Existing job descriptions will also be reviewed and revised as needed for specific positions. The third goal, work with administrative team, faculty, and staff in order to analyze data to make recommendations regarding programming and services for all students. That's really looking at what we have, what we need, what we can move forward to. This will be a 2-part assessment. The first will be a mid-year summary document provided to the school board documenting what has been planned and implemented regarding a K-12 curriculum and instructional realignment, strategic planning to improve special education training and support, additional recommendations or restructuring of any programming to better meet the needs of the district, and an overview of professional development that has occurred to move the district forward. The second part of the assessment will involve a year-end summary and recommendations of the work that has been done over the year. This summary will include next steps towards continued improvement for the district. Goal 4, using the 2012 OPUDA study as a basis, work with the Student Services Administrator to review special education programming and services and develop recommendations around the following: staffing levels, additional or realignment of program recommendations, staff training and supports needed, and ensuring that all staff understand and comply with expectations outlined in the district special ed process and procedures manual. The assessment, in conjunction with the Student Services Administrator, a year-end report will be provided to the board that will review and outline the work that has been completed over the year, which specifically addresses the 4 areas noted above. 5, manage the new SAU administrative team to ensure familiarity and compliance with district policy and establish budgeting procedures to enable smooth inputs from the staff for an efficient process in working with the budget committee and the board. And this is really about the 3 of us kind of learning the ropes of the district and how things are done and making improvements. And so the assessment over the next 2 years of budget cycles, the board and budget committee will have transparency from the administration during the budget process. The board and budget committee will have a clear understanding of the needs and wants of the district. And 6 is to expand and rely on data task force information as means of objective comparisons with cohort districts established by the board. And then the assessment is when appropriate, the data task force information will be utilized to assist in making decisions and in the setting of individual goal areas.
Okay, open the floor for comment. Anyone have any comments on what Stacy's proposed?
Good, nice detail.
I just think it reflects a taking stock year,
Yeah.
you know, which you have to do before you can.
I was gonna say, it's hard to get into budget, having school in session for a month, so
Yeah.
it's hard, but we're figuring out,
And then
getting through it.
a vision after.
This is not the first proposal. As Stacy said, she and I did discuss some detail here, and I offered some thoughts, but this is primarily her suggestion. So I think in support of the effort for her to take over and move us forward with her expertise and guidance, I think this is a very good start.
I didn't like the first thing. Reviewing the K through 8 again, I thought that was on the table for a while.
You don't like the first goal?
Well, I do part of it, but the K through 8 and the K through 6, I didn't, the two things there, K through 6 was from Danbury, right?
That never went away.
I think we understand your thoughts and feelings on that, Lloyd, and your comments have been duly recorded. We have waited for the new superintendent to come aboard before arbitrarily making a decision that might be contrary to the benefit of the district. And so that seemed to be a prudent requirement to put forth as a goal. The people, we have gone around to a number of the select boards. We have, I believe, Alexandria and Groton left to do.
Yep.
Actually, Alexandria's
It is
coming up tomorrow evening, and Groton next, the 24th, Monday, 23rd. In doing that, at the Bridgewater meeting, Bridgewater Town Hall meeting that Stacy was introduced at, there were a lot of people in attendance regarding the issue.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people into it too. So I didn't, and they wanted me to sit at this table, so.
I'm sorry?
I hear a lot of people too, and they wanted me to come say something on it. I says, I'm not getting involved with it. That's up to you, not me. As far as
Okay,
going public,
well-
I'm not going involved with the public.
In any case, there's, it's a goal to come up with a professional recommendation. I think it would be inappropriate of the board to do that independent of having a superintendent in place, and then ask the superintendent to implement whatever that was. So the work's been done, the dialogue's been started. We'll see where that takes us.
Vincent, did you say Groton was the 24th? The superintendent would go to Groton the 24th?
The superintendent introduction is that Monday, which would be the 24th,
I have a,
It's Tuesday, the 24th.
okay.
because
It is the
planning and
20th.
dialogue is Monday.
Monday, yeah, it's Tuesday.
Right, and I've asked, I can't make that meeting. That's the only one I can't make, so I think Jeff is gonna attend with Stacy. So, Dawn?
On number 2, the job descriptions, as part of that, will you be looking at the performance criteria for evaluations?
We have to do that as part of the evaluation process, so I don't know that I would do it in a job description, but I think
No,
it
not
will-
in the
yeah,
job description,
I-
but the job description is a basis for what you then include in
Yeah,
the
so as part of,
performance
us, the
criteria.
state getting our waiver, we're required to include, a minimum of 20% of teacher evaluations as student performance, which kind of ties that whole thing together. So, I've talked with, we have a professional development committee meeting coming up, and so we're gonna talk a little bit about that and how we can get a group of people together to start looking at that. So, it's certainly not off the table at this point as far as performance evaluation. It's complicated, though, as to measuring all of that, and so I want to make sure we're fair to teachers, but also holding people accountable for performance, and so I think we're looking to get people together to really look at that piece of it.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, edits, additions, deletions, preferences? Whatever we ultimately agree to, Stacy, I think this probably should be communicated to the staff. Mimi?
I just want a copy. Were there extra copies that went that way? I'll get it before I go.
Okay. Don't hear any further discussion on that, so if we're comfortable with what's been proposed, we can always come back to it. I'll keep that separate. That brings us to item 9L. It looks awfully like a 1, but we'll go with 9L. Field trip request for the New Hampton
Oh, this is the high school one?
Newfound Regional High School, okay, NRHS. October 12th, the band trip. It should be in your packet.
Yeah, it's in your packet. In general, the band is looking to go to the University of Massachusetts Band Day. It's an opportunity for them to play on a field, the marching band. They're expecting 65 different bands to attend, and do a presentation at halftime. It's a great opportunity for our students to be exposed to kind of what a college level field looks like, and that opportunity to continue playing into college.
It's actually a professional stadium,
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for them.
even bigger than
Yeah.
local college
Yeah.
stadiums.
I think that would be a
Yeah,
great trip.
Central Ed Stadium.
It's a nice stadium, yeah.
Yeah.
Chaperones, is that
Us?
enough? No,
Is that us?
Is that enough? And how many do they have to have per student? Or there may be other staff going?
I hope we can get them to play at our football games up here. We never have them, I mean,
Well, it's
that's the purpose of the band, as far as I'm concerned, you know, our local
It's only
football team.
35 students.
1 to 12
That'd be nice.
You just wanna sit out on your porch? and
No,
listen?
I don't porch, I drive my four-wheeler down, sit at the band.
Well, obviously, Mr. Judd's going as well, right?
Yes, so that's three. So
3 to 35 kids.
That's a good rehearsal, you know.
And I'm guessing it's very well supervised, just by volume of people.
Okay. Sounds like a great opportunity. Should do that every year.
Do you want that on the consent agenda?
Yeah, let's add that to consent. Are there any objections to doing that? Okay. We're now at item 9Z, which is other business. The first item we added was the football field disbursement. Motion to approve the bill and payment request received from Friends of Newfound Football, thereby authorizing the district treasurer to disperse funds from the football field trust account in the amount of $985.95. Do we know what this was for, Dan?
Paint and field supplies.
Okay.
It's a single invoice from Franklin Paint.
Yeah.
And I received the funds to cover the costs, which were deposited into the, last week, and they were deposited to the football field trust account.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Why don't we add that to the consent agenda? Okay. bear with me a second. Where's my... Here we go. No objection, we'll add that to the consent agenda. Next item is, final item for discussion is the field trip for the New Hampton Community School, which we added as item Z2.
And that was included in your package as well, and this is an annual trip to Old Sturbridge Village. It's got all the information on there, the cost, and it's 4 to 5 students for 1 adult. It's a long trip. They leave early in the morning and come back later at night.
Yeah, it's a long day.
Yeah, it's a long day.
What grade level is it?
Yep.
See that.
She mentioned staff and parents. Have they been identified?
I don't know. I'm guessing the staff are the teachers. Typically, parents will volunteer. It's not till the middle of October, so I'm not sure if they've identified
Yeah.
exactly who's going.
Was it the New Hampton school?
Yeah.
Yes.
The other schools go there at all?
I don't know.
Seems
I haven't
kinda-
gotten that far.
I don't
I'm
know,
hearing
I just
that
wonder
they
if
know.
only one school goes, or they're all invited, or what.
Yeah.
Seems like a shame if the others can't go, you know?
I haven't seen that request before. Remember last year, we had all the schools going to the same place but not on the same day, and I
Yeah,
said that.
So I didn't know if their trip was later or what, you know?
No, that's a good question.
I don't like to stop, one school goes, and the other says we don't get to go anywhere, you know? Stop that.
I'll do a field trip assessment.
Yeah, just to see.
Forward to please.
Huh?
Analyze field trips.
My kids don't go.
Any objection to putting that on the consent agenda? Okay. All right, we'll move on now to item 10 on the agenda, which is public comment. We have a few folks in public. If there's anyone that would like to speak, could you identify yourself? Just state your name and town for the record. Brian?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Brian Richardson from Alexandria. Most of you know who I am, I think, probably anyways. But I was trying to figure out how I was going to lead in with the way the packet states. It has to be something to do with the discussion that's been made. So you talked about the paint and you talked about the band. So I guess that gives me opportunity to discuss both of those. The 28th of September, this month, obviously, we are going to be having homecoming for all the I think all the sports in the at the high school. It'll be a big day for, I guess, probably Friday and Saturday both. I believe. I haven't really even looked at the schedule, but up at the Morrison Field that day there will be a junior high H game at 10 o'clock in the morning, followed by a high school game that afternoon, and it will be a great event, and we'd like to see as many of you as possible. Even the band would be nice if that were something that were possible. So as you discussed, I'm excited to hear that they're going down to Massachusetts to take part in that. So without any further ado, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else?
Can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Last year you had the football cards.
Yep.
You're doing that again this year?
I believe they are. Yeah.
Yes, I bought 3.
Yeah.
I buy them for my kids and me.
Okay. Yeah. It actually is
So
a.
why don't you describe that That's a sales pitch.
Well, I can do that. I actually, the funny part about that is as the president of Friends of Newfound Football, we do not actually do those. That actually is the Newfound Regional High School football. This is one of their, I think, 2 fundraisers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 fundraisers they're allowed to do. So it's a team, but that does it. It's basically a discount card for different businesses around the area that take part in it, and you get like I'm just going to give you an example. I think if it's still the same, you can go to Dunkin' Donuts and get a medium coffee and get a free donut with that. Or I know there's percentages off breakfast meals and from other restaurants and whatnot too. So.
I buy it for only one thing. It's a $10 card, and every time you spend $100 at Shop and Save, you get $5 off. So 2 trips to the grocery store pays for the card. So I put it in my big kid's Christmas stocking. They know it's coming.
Gee, I wish that you came up here
It's a
and
great
made
deal.
that pitch, because that's one of the things I didn't think to say.
Yeah, it's the best,
Yeah.
the best thing on it.
And then where can you buy them?
Oh, I bought mine from Player, sorry.
Yeah, no, the players sell them, and they'll be.
My son's selling them.
Stop by
Yeah.
PSA.
Yeah, you can go to Ann's.
And
You
get
can go to
a-
Ann's son and buy them. Actually, I'm pretty sure that
I think
the
he turned them in today.
establishment.
I think they might actually be done, but.
Oh,
He
really?
had to bring his extra ones back in today.
All right. Well,
Maybe the office
I was
has
told
some.
you could buy them all through the year, though.
I think you can.
Because
I think you can. I think actually
they're
the
good through September, the following September.
Yeah.
right. I think actually I've seen them before at, as an example, Village Pizza. So I think some of the establishments that are on there, I think actually will have them. I apologize, I can't give you more information on that, but
Or
yeah,
you
they-
could come to the school during the day, stop by and say hello and
There you
pick one
go.
up then. One fun thing to do is to have lunch with the kids, especially the elementary grades.
I will make sure that I collect a few of them so that next time somebody asks me that question, I will be able to present one to you. Okay. But sorry about that. I don't have more information, but yeah, it is a good event, and we have been doing it for quite a few years. So thanks for asking.
Any other public comment? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, are there any changes to the consent agenda as agreed prior? Okay, hearing none, those 5 items as identified. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Paul. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Ruby. Okay, those items for the record include the snowplow bid recommendation, the oil bid recommendation, the Newfound Regional High School band trip, the payment from the football trust account, and the New Hampton Community School field trip. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes without any abstention, is that correct? 7-0. Okay, that brings us to action items on other items not otherwise on the consent agenda, which brings us to item 12C, which would be the review of the audit report. Is there a motion to accept the audit report?
So moved.
Moved by Sue to accept the audit report as submitted by Mr. Rossner and the auditors, seconded by Paul. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Vote is 7-0 with no one absent. It's approved. That brings us to the next item, which is item 12D, the Newfound Nutrition meal rates. And the motion is, as submitted. I have it here somewhere. I think it's on yellow paper.
First one, yeah. To increase the price of paper.
Oh, here it is, yeah. Okay, there is a motion to increase the prices for paid lunch by 10 cents per meal at all schools. Who cares to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Paul and seconded by Lloyd. Okay, cross-reference 9D, 12D, okay.
And can I just correct it? You said per meal, didn't you? But it's per lunch.
It says, yeah, it says to increase prices paid, the prices for paid lunch by 10 cents per meal at all schools.
Right.
Just to reiterate. Okay, further discussion. Okay. I have never voted for an increase in lunch. I don't intend to change now, so I don't know how any others feel, but it's always how I feel when it comes to lunch. Any further discussion?
Well, I don't know. I'm concerned about what happens if we don't.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
The federal government's getting involved and so keep out of trouble.
Yeah, I don't want them involved more than they are.
We just
Yeah.
have to approve that.
They are.
Got it.
Cleaning up the business.
I don't want to cut off discussion on that. I'm
So-
just letting you know how I intend to vote, but
So we could subsidize
Right.
as
We'd like to be able to buy lunch
Dan
for $2.50.
suggested.
I would rather see a motion that we subsidize the meals than let the federal government tell us what to do,
Right.
any more than they already do.
Well, the motion before the floor is to increase the prices for paid lunch by 10 cents per meal at all schools.
So if we vote against it, then we are voting to subsidize it.
More.
No, it's a separate
Well,
motion, it'd be a
No,
separate
that
vote.
would be a different motion.
Okay, then.
Well-
So maybe we need two.
Yeah, that'd be another motion.
But
Yeah.
if we do nothing, then we're automatically subsidizing them.
Well,
Dan, question to Dan.
Yes, but the subsidy, the requirements will be, the reporting and definition requirements, for lack of a better term, will be dramatically increased.
Can you repeat what you just said?
The reporting and definition of that subsidy, the reporting thereof, and the definition of that subsidy, how it's retrieved and how it's implemented will be dramatically different.
Between if we just leave it as is and if we vote to subsidize?
Yeah, what you'll have to do, in my opinion, what you will be now forced to do in consideration of your next budget will be to define that we're gonna subsidize paid meals at certain cents a rate. And it's gonna probably come out to more than what this year's budgeted subsidy is. But, so it'll increase, it'll wind up being a budgetary increase for that line of the food service fund, the fund transfer from the general fund to the food service fund, which is this year $25,000.
I'm concerned about showing a subsidy in a way, because then the taxpayers look at this as an area where we spend more than we take in, and they want to whack food service personnel and cut costs.
Yeah. I mean, if you step back and forget the notion that the federal government's requiring us to do this calculation and look at the overarching premise of food service, which is that it's supposed to break even, we shouldn't be subsidizing it. So in fact, if you had looked at that, raising it 10 cents it should have actually been probably raised more to
Well, I was
even
gonna suggest to you that they're not
equalize.
requiring you to do it. they're only requiring you to do it as a condition for them,
Right.
for them giving you the bulk of the revenue to the program.
Right.
There is more money, or approximately the same amount of money received from the federal government for the meals for the children that can't afford it than is received to the program from the paying customers. So there's. Go ahead.
Finish up, and I'm gonna
No,
add
I'm
something.
done.
The other way I look at this is, if we're gonna raise lunch prices, school year has already started, and that is not the time to do it.
Good point.
Well, you gonna let it ride for this year, do nothing? That's what you're saying, huh?
That's not what I'm saying.
I don't think 10 cents
Have
is
they-
catastrophic.
I know,
Have they
gee,
actually
they can buy a jar of peanut butter and
documented-
fill it for bread.
That they will retaliate if we don't?
Yeah, don't ask me to point to that legislation, but it's part of the legislation that enables the subsidy. That was the, how it was put to us in the presentation from the Bureau of Nutrition Services. I can certainly ask them for a briefing document on if the district chooses not to raise its prices, what are the potential ramifications, and have that be shared with you.
Can I,
Hasn't come up before, I'm sorry.
oh, no, that's okay. I was gonna ask, can I suggest that the maker and the second of this withdraw the amendment and that we get that information? and
There is no
revisit this?
amendment, what do you mean?
Not the amendment, the motion.
You
But
could do
then
that, or
we'll
you
be
could,
delaying it another month.
That's all.
you could
to
do that, or you
Jeff's
could move to
comment.
table it, which would take precedence.
You could table it to see if we can get more clarification. I mean, I think before the board denies it, you should have a full understanding of what the impact of that is. Because that could go far reaching beyond food service. I mean, if you refuse food service, I don't know if it would affect title monies at all. If you're not in compliance with food service, if that affects any of your title grants.
That's an interesting question.
You never know.
It's all federal.
Do you want to do a straw vote? See whether it needs to be tabled?
No, I think that the motion's before us, we're discussing it, and the option is to either make the request of the maker and the seconder to withdraw it, and then we're back to ground zero, or for someone to make a precedent motion, which is to move to table it, which is not debatable, and we have to vote on that.
I move that
Putting
we
off the
table
inevitable.
motion.
Okay, Ruby has made a motion to table the motion before you on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Putting off the inevitable.
there is no discussion on a motion to table. Therefore, all those in favor of tabling the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Could I see a show of hands? Okay, so the vote is 4 in favor. Are those opposed to tabling? 3. Okay, the minority tabling vote is Hebron, Bristol, and New Hampton. The motion's been tabled. In order to reconsider it at a future date, it will have to be moved to take from the table, which would probably be based on information that's provided to us, Stacy, by your office. Okay, that means that we can move on to item 12E, if I can find it, which is surplus property. We had an objection to the consent agenda, I believe. I didn't have that on the consent agenda. So, the motion before you is to declare a surplus in according with policy DN, IT equipment with little or no functional value, including assorted desktop PCs, 43, Mac Minis, 24, MacBooks 9, MacBook Pro 1, Mac Tower Server 1, Mac Rack Servers 6, NutriKids POS terminals 5, keyboards 85, LCD monitors 20, CD drives 4, and a Palm Pilot. Who cares to make the motion?
So moved.
Moved by Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
seconded by Ruby. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to declare a surplus as identified signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes 7, no abstentions, right? 7-0. And we're now to item 12F, which is budget development guidelines. No action is necessary. This was a discussion information item. Item 12G, which is the Hill School District request and update. No action is necessary. This too was a discussion for your information item. And now we have 2 separate motions for 12H. Unless you want to take these collectively, which would probably be appropriate. Is there any objection to taking them individually, or collectively, rather?
Oh, I'd rather take them separately because one is grant funded.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, 12H1 would be the motion to formally elect the nomination of Deborah Hoyt as the middle school psychologist, Stacy?
Middle and high school.
Middle and high school psychologist.
So moved.
Motion made by Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ruby. Let me just keep up with the notes here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 7-0. Stacy Hoyt has been elected.
Debbie Hoyt. Deborah.
Debbie Hoyt, I'm sorry, Stacy. H2 would be to nominate Joellen DeVal, is that right?
Divol. D-I-V-O-L-O.
Joellen DeVal,
Joe Allen?
Yes.
as the out-of-district coordinator.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Stacy, moved by Paul, I'm sorry, seconded by Ruby. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Oh, good, thank you for not making a mess of my notes. Joe Ellen. D-I-V-O-L-L.
Correct.
Out of district coordinator. Okay, that brings us to item 12J, which would be the collective bargaining subject. Is there a motion to identify the entire board as the negotiation team?
Yes, so moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Lloyd. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Vote is 7-0. No one opposed and no abstentions. Okay, we're now at item 12K, which is discussion, or rather a motion to accept the superintendent's goals as proposed by Superintendent Buckley for the 2013 and 2014 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Lloyd. Discussion. Okay, you have the final version in front of you, that's what we'll go with. Those 6 goals are before you as a proposal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 7-0-0. Wow, that's amazing, Stacy. Completely unedited, first time around. That we must have faith in you.
I shoot for perfection.
Superintendent's goals as submitted. I guess we're behind you. That means you're out
Thank
in
you for
front.
that. Yes.
Okay, let's see. That brings us to trip request, which is a consent item, and item 12Z, which is Z1, the motion to dispense funds in the amount of $985 and, oh, that was consent?
Yep.
Oh, that's right, and so was the field trip.
Yep.
That's right. Those were approved, yeah, consent. Okay, brings us to item 13, which is manifests.
Not at this time. I take my share of the blame for that.
Okay. No manifests.
No.
Okay, I have a few announcements. We're at announcements under item 14. Does anyone else have announcements?
I have a few, just.
Tomorrow night is the meeting of the Alexandria Select Board, where we'll introduce Stacy Buckley as the new superintendent for the district. We've done that with several select boards. The only one to follow would be Groton, which would be the final one, and Jeff's going to do that meeting with Stacy. We're also just informally advising the select boards of what transpired with respect to the budget surplus, very informally, and that we've adopted under RSA 198 the retention of the, what are we calling that?
Retained fund balance.
The retained fund balance, right, in the amount of $350,000. That can only be used by the school board as a result of an emergency and a public hearing. So it's far more restrictive than in the past. There is a meet and greet with Stacy here in this room on Wednesday of this week, which would be September 11th, from 5 to 7. We invite all members of the public to come and say hello. The other thing is that there's a new web page out there that I believe is being done locally called the Newfound Experience. I advise you to check it out. It's very informative and appears to be helpful. I'm not sure exactly who's doing it, but check it out, and maybe as it gets updated, that information will be provided as well.
Can I add, she asked that we give her information to publish about what's going on with the board. And since she wrote to all of us, we should probably have one of us responding.
Oh, that is, it was done by Amy Kinch then, okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to question whether or not that procedurally could be done proactively or in response. So let's take that offline. But
Okay.
the website is interesting. I found it interesting, and I advocate for those to check it out. The last announcement I have is, one second, Lloyd, the RSA 195 committee will be scheduled for one final meeting for purposes of voting on the final report in its final form, which will be provided in advance to all 14 members digitally for your review. And if you want to discuss it and make any changes at that meeting, then that would be the time to do it. And immediately following the adjournment of that meeting, we will convene once again as a committee to approve the minutes, which will say that we submitted the final report as documented on that particular date, and then we'll adjourn permanently. That report will go to the Department of Education, and that will be behind us. That was the procedure that was recommended by the School Board Association. And I'm suggesting that that committee will hold its meeting probably just before the next school board meeting, so that means that the 7 of us will likely be in attendance, and we'll need just one more member from the rest of the committee to have a quorum.
Isn't that on the, what date is that?
Haven't picked it yet.
Oh, okay, you said our next meeting, because we have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a pre-meeting meeting.
Yeah, at a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
But I wanted to wait and get the report from you digitally before I pick that, so. And the final announcement I have is that there will be a meeting of the Superintendent's Safety Committee that shall convene at the end of the month,
It's the 23rd, right?
on the 23rd, and under RSA 91A3, Section 2, subnumeral I, that is a non-public meeting.
That's actually just not, it's not a board meeting. It's
Correct.
like, yeah.
But it's not open to the public. Those are all the announcements I had.
I
Lloyd?
just have one question, because Dan's last meeting, and I'm reading in here, Dan, how bad is the problem with the middle school? That was something we gotta get some prices.
Which problem with the middle school?
What is it? I was reading in the report here, something about the mildew and stuff and that, or something.
I don't think there's
Something
any-
that we thought it was a big job coming up we had to do. I don't know where I read it right in here, somewhere in the report.
I'm not aware of any problem at the middle school. There was a report of some mold-like substances possibly being at the high school. Our facilities team addressed it. We then brought in an indoor air quality evaluator from the Property Liability Trust, the municipal insurance pool we belong to. They visited and did some testing last week and have since provided a written report on the conditions they found. It also makes the comment that the materials we used to address the problem and the manners in which we did are consistent with best practices in the industry. And we have since circulated that report to the Newfoundland Teachers Association as recently as late this afternoon for their review, because some of the concerns that were brought forth about the appearance of this substance came from that organization.
I don't know, I read it in here somewhere, I'll never find it now, but they said it could be a big financial thing, and I didn't know if, you know.
That wasn't in my report.
Is it about the wall,
Are you
maybe?
confusing it with the Bristol Elementary
Bristol
School
wall.
wall?
I didn't mention that in my report either.
Okay.
No,
It was.
no, it was, yeah,
It was in the middle school report.
said it could be a financial
Yeah,
thing.
we're at announcements, folks, so are there any others?
I just,
Stacy?
I did want to pass, I don't know if this is an announcement, but just, we received a letter from a parent of a New Hampton, no, a Danbury student. Just wanted us to pass it around to thank the board for their efforts and regarding the summer program. So I just wanted to pass it around for the board to see.
Excellent.
Just also a reminder that your October meeting typically falls on a holiday on the 14th, which is Columbus Day, so you'll meet on the 15th, which is Tuesday. So just put that in your calendars. And then just one announcement, I did want to note that Valerie Kehoe, who is a reading specialist at Bridgewater Hebron Village School, was appointed to the state board professional standard, to the state professional standards board, which has kind of oversight of professional development and all of that for the state level. So I just wanted the board to recognize that. I thought that was a great thing
Sounds great.
for our district.
Oh, here it is, Dan, I found it, if I may. On page 13 of this report, it says air quality issues at Newfoundland Memorial Middle School that were not addressed due to the failure of warrant article in 2010 maybe need to be revisited due to changing legal standards.
Oh, the auditors.
Oh, that's in my part, that's in the management discussion and analysis. It's contained within the financial audit report.
Yeah, it says future budgetary implications, so I didn't know if it was something we had to look out for. Or
Well, that's a discussion the district may wish to engage in.
Yeah, is that something we should follow up on, or where are we at with that?
We're nowhere at it. There's a provision in the Rhode Island statutes, the New Hampshire statutes that say no means no. I made much public comment about the issue 3 years ago. I had a warrant article before the public to deal with the air quality issues at the middle school. It was turned down. So one of the requirements of the management discussion analysis is that I make comment on any potential budgetary implications for the future. So that's what I'm doing there. The air
I didn't know
quality-
there was anything action we had to do on that, or we hanging out on that, before you're gone, and, hey, go out and get your coffee.
Okay, Lloyd has announced that Dan has included the information in his report. Thank you. We have an announcement from Fred.
I was just wondering, the planning and development meeting on this month, does it have a special topic? It was reported last month that there was a special topic for
Yes,
that meeting?
that's the next item on the agenda after we get past announcements.
Okay.
Lloyd, are you done announcing? Okay. I have seen this, so thank you. We're now at school events, which is see attached sheet, which is on your agenda, which is full of information on school events. I encourage you to check the website.
Busy, busy month.
It is indeed. Item 16 is the dates of the next school board meetings. The next regularly scheduled meeting, as noted by Stacy, is on a Tuesday evening, which is after Columbus Day, right? Which would be October 15th. That's a regular meeting. We'll be creating the agenda for that shortly. And then following that, in answer to your question, Fred, the planning and dialogue meeting topic is on special education. And that will be on Monday, September 23rd, 6:30 PM here in the Library Media Center. And that brings us to item 17. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Paul. Is it seconded?
Yes.
Seconded by Ruby at 8:45 PM. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0. We are now adjourned at 8:45 PM.
Stacy, can you send me your goals electronically?
Say again?